All right, everybody. Just a quick intro before the video actually starts. This is the first video for the new version of my channel. Gone is Smirking Gun, and now it's just Smirking Reviews. And while you might think that the changes are minor, for me making them, this feels like a fresh start and onto different things and new ways of doing things, slightly tweaking how we did things before. But I hope you guys like the new version of the content, even if it is pretty similar to the old one. But you might notice some slight differences in how I present things. So, at least on this channel. And don't forget to go over to Smirking Reviews Classics and Smirking Reviews Comics. Right now, there's really no content over there. We're just getting this off the ground, but we will be putting stuff up on both channels as soon as I can. But I'm still working. So remember, look towards next Friday, November 19th, to see a bunch of content, which will be covering Wheel of Time, Cowboy Bebop. We'll be having Dune, Eternal Spoilers talk. We'll be talking Ghostbusters Afterlife. We've got a lot coming. But up until then, this is the first new video for Smirking Reviews. Enjoy. All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here, and today we're going to be talking about The Wheel of Time, the book. And we're talking about the first book by Robert Jordan called The Eye of the World. Why are we talking about a book on a movie, TV show, channel? Well, I always say we do what we want on this channel. We talk about comics and other things. Today, we're talking about a book that is the basis for this new Amazon Prime series starring Rosamund Pike. And I have a subscriber who's really, really into this, and my interest was piqued. I'm glad that they kept up telling me about it because these days, for me, with everything I got going on, I forget things are coming out. I don't pay attention as much, and I don't watch trailers very often because I don't like trailers. They reveal too much. But the real thing, the reason we're talking about this was because I didn't know what kind of way I wanted to talk about this show. Like The Expanse, right? I bought the first book well after the series started. And I was covering that show as a non-book reader. And even though I own the first book, I have yet to crack the first 100 pages on it. Same thing happened recently with Dune. I received the first book, Dune, for my birthday this year, and I really had to decide whether or not I was going to read that before or after seeing the new version of it that was just released. And I tore through Dune, and I loved it, and I liked being able to talk about that movie, which we are going to be talking about. I haven't yet, but we are going to be talking about that movie on the channel. I wanted to get a sense of it all because I watched the David Lynch version and the new version, and I got a lot of things to say about it. I also read all the Game of Thrones books, and I thought it was interesting, talking about that show, thinking about the books and how they compared and all that. But it doesn't always... For me, there's kind of this like trade-off when you do that. Like The Expanse, I love covering The Expanse and having no idea where it's going. I love the fact that they can change things and I won't know until somebody points it out. And I kind of like not having expectations for anything but like what I can dream up in my own imagination and not what's something that's written down on the page. But there's also the trade-off being you want to see some of these awesome things that you read play out on screen. But that also can hit you because what if they don't do it? What if they mess it up? All that kind of stuff. The same thing with like The Walking Dead.
I didn't start reading The Walking Dead until after the show had been out for a little while, and then I dove back in and um, had my own opinions on that. So deciding whether or not I was going to read this was really a challenge. I struggled with this for a minute, but since I had just finished reading Dune, and I was in kind of that book mode I get into. I think a lot of people get into that mode where you pick up one book and the next thing you know, you've read like 12 books. I'm a book binger. I won't read for a little while and then I'll tear through like a whole bunch of books. But I really for specifically for this series, I really felt like I wanted to have some knowledge. Or at least, I wanted to when I was watching the show, I wanted to have a greater understanding of the world that this takes place in. And boy, oh boy, after 813 pages, do I have a good perspective and a good idea of what's happening in this series. And so I'm really excited to be able to use that for the reviews. I don't know if, I do have some expectations now that I've read this as to what I would love to see play out in the first season of this show. Whether or not the first season encompasses the first book, I don't know. It feels like it very well could. They would definitely have to trim it down. So now let's talk about this book. Because speaking of trimming down, it's one of the only things that I did not like about this. This book is fantastic, though. I really dug it. It did feel a lot like I was like familiar territory. I was told to think of the Fellowship of the Ring, and I saw a lot of influence in that. I saw a lot of influences from other fantasy things, but I feel like there's only so many different ways you can tell stories that take place in this kind of medieval, dragons and magic, that kind of thing. That you're gonna sound similar, and so part of that was helpful reading this book, that familiarity, knowing that this book is this thick, you know. So when I would get to things that were more familiar to me, it was a lot easier to read. Um, my big issue with this book is it's not an issue. It's not an issue. It's a I actually love it, but it comes down to personal taste in certain ways, and that's I've heard that if you really like these books, there's got to be many reasons, and one of those reasons has got to be the details. Robert Jordan is excellent, excellent at details. I would say he like Stephen King before him. This guy will tell you about everything in this world, everything in everything, anything and everything gets described in this, and that's where I ran into a little trouble with this, right around chapter 32. Like I dealt with a lot of it early on when I realized the first few chapters are a lot of world building, get to know all these characters, and so I understood I need to feel lived. I need to like putting on a comfortable worn gloves. I don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like something that feels lived in. You want to slip it on and feel comfortable in it. And so I was good with that. But around in the middle of this book, I struggled because it was just like, okay, another inn, another road, another inn that they, like it felt like an another person that runs the inn, and we have to describe all of that stuff. And I just finished this today, and now that I'm done, it doesn't feel like when I'm talking about it, I'm like, well, it really wasn't that big of long of a time, but at the time it was happening, it felt like forever. But that is like my only thing. Where I was like, could there have been another pass at this book where they could have trimmed some of that down? Yes. There is also, but to do that, you would also lose some key character moments. You're getting character development in those moments. but it just got to be a bit like really long in the tooth feeling until boom, you kind of hit this like last stride into the third act. Now, if you don't know what this is, because the show's coming out, like you've got a lot of characters in this. You've got Rand, you've got Matt, you've got Perrin, these three boys who are told that they have to leave their village after an attack by these things called the Trollocs. That why the reason they're there is because of them, and they have to be taken by this Aes Sedai, who is like if you want to put a label on it, like I don't know, witch, I guess would be a good way of putting it. But like she's not I don't see her as that. But like Aes Sedai means nothing to your general layperson. So somebody who can do magic, an enchantress, let's call her an enchantress instead of a witch, like somebody who knows how to use magical powers. And it's part of this bigger organization, and they're not looked too highly by many, many people because a long time ago, because they saved the world, they also kind of broke it. And so now when they come around, people are, kind of freaked out by them. But this woman has to take these three boys and a couple other people to parts unknown. You don't really know her motivation, which I kind of like. There's a lot of mystery shrouding Moyrane, who is the one that's going to be played Moyrane. Early on I had a hard time reading her character's name, and I kept having to sound it out. Yeah, Moyrane, played by Rosamund Pike. That's how you say her name. And she's got a man with her that's like an Aragorn type named Lan. There's a girl named Ang. It's like you think I didn't just finish reading this book. Egwene, I want to say is how you say her name, who is like, I don't want to spoil anything in this book because then it kind of spoils anything in the show. I'm going to try to talk about this in generalities, but she's a bit of a love interest for the character of Rand, who's got her own things going on. You've got a character named Nynaeve, who also has like an interest in making sure that the boys are okay. And Moyrane and Lan are trying to protect them from the Dark One because, hey, it's fantasy world. There's always got to be a Dark One who is trying to come back and destroy everything. It's Fantasy Fair 101. And if there's good versions of this story, and there's plenty of schlock books out there that aren't as good, but it's all art and subjective. And the only thing I was worried about is that I was not going to like it, but I really do like it. Now, one thing that I'll say for people that are excited for the show, this book is pretty much taken from the perspective mostly by the Rand character. Moyrane has no POV in this. Not really. It's mostly, like the three main boys, Rand, Matt, and Perrin, they get the majority of the arc in this book because it's about, they're the ones that are wanted, and they go through many, many changes and many, many things happen to them. And I really enjoyed their adventures. But with that, like, I felt like a lot of the other characters didn't get as much we didn't get as much insight into their character. It was a lot of things happening to the three main boys and what they, how they bounce off of these other characters. I really wish there had been more with Moyrane, as far as I wish there was like point of view chapters in here. There is some for the character of Nynaeve that are interesting. But I feel like the female characters in this don't get as developed in this book. Since they don't really have much of a point of view, it's again how other characters see them. I would have liked to gotten into all their heads a bit more. And with 14 books, I have a feeling that that's not going to be a problem. But what I was thinking about was the perspective of the show. Who are we going to be following around? Because the trailers, right? I did watch the trailers for this. I think I only watched the first one, though. It seems to, they're selling it as Rosamund Pike. This is a Rosamund Pike show. You like her? Great. It feels like her show. But this is not her book. This is Rand's book, mostly. So I'm curious to see whether or not where the focus is going to be on the show. Or will it be multiple focuses? Or will there be just one majority based on Rand? Or will they kind of push Rand a little to the side so that they can focus more on Moyrane? Will we get a Moyrane perspective in the show that we didn't really see in the book? And will there be motivations that we didn't see in the book play out more in the show? I'm just trying to, and I'm only saying this so that people don't get disappointed when they see the show and realize maybe she's not playing as big a role in it as they're trying to sell it to you on Amazon. Another thing about this is after reading this, what does Amazon even need the Lord of the Rings series for? If this is successful, if they put the stuff that's in here that's really, really cool in here, it's just on the same par as Lord of the Rings, man. And you don't, like, skip it. Don't. I mean, if you want to make Lord of the Rings, I'll watch it. But I'm just saying, like, there's some stuff in here that's really, really dope. Really dope. And do they remind me of things from the Lord of the Rings? Yes, but like I said, there's only so many different things you can do, really, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess I could make some stuff up, but, like, there's some really cool things that remind me of Lord of the Rings but aren't Lord of the Rings. And I really dug it. And while it was a journey, and it was a long journey, I haven't read a comic book for the last 4 weeks, a new one. I've barely played any games, and I've got a backlog. I'm trying to get through Immortals, Phoenix Rising, and Far Cry 6, and Mass Effect, and Batman Arkham Knight, and all these other games. I have barely touched anything. I've been eating, sleeping, and breathing the Eye of the World for like 4 weeks, it feels like. Maybe a little bit more than that. That's how long it took for me to get through this. I had to give up so much to finish this. Because I really was desperate to finish this before the show came out. But when it clips, it clips. There's all the characters, even if I'm not selling like that you get as much development with them, all of them really feel really, I liked following all of them around. I really liked Lan. I liked everybody in this. The only character I didn't like that much was Nynaeve, but she even she kind of grew on me. And I'm going to talk a bit about some stuff that could be spoilers here for the end of the book. So if you haven't read this book, definitely check it out. It is a heavy read. You can also get them on Audible. When I couldn't read it, I had my headphones in and I got the Audible version of this book, and that helped immensely. Also, it helps, because you get the characters' voices in your head a little bit. So, but that also could be a double-edged sword, because while I was reading this and listening to it, I kind of felt like the characters were a lot younger than what they look like as the cast is playing them, because the cast is mostly late 20s, mid to late 20s, and I kind of see these characters, most of them, to be like 14 to 17 years old. I could be wrong about that. I'm a little concerned about that, but I highly recommend this book. I do think that I'm not going to read book 2 until sometime next year, but this isn't just, some ripoff of Lord of the Rings. This is a really sweet book, and I'm really interested to see where they're going. They really set up a lot of cool stuff for the second book, but this is a full story that does not leave you too gypped as far as like, oh God, now I got to read the second one. Like, there's a pretty definitive end to this part of the journey, and I appreciated that. So anyway, a few spoilers here at the end, so you might want to click off if you don't want any. I had a little bit of an issue with how the end came out, which is there's these characters called the Forsaken. Our heroes get to where they're going, and suddenly there's these two characters we're just basically being introduced to out of nowhere. They're from the big bad, and I felt like these characters should have been people following them, that maybe there could have been a POV of the bad guys in this. It felt a little like out of like, who, what, like, they just, these really powerful guys that endanger them really bad, and I felt like there was a lot of things following them in this world already that it felt a little like should have been something that we were already introduced to coming at them, like something that you might have forgotten about, though, even that you go, oh wow, yeah, this is still there, oh man, I forgot about this, or yeah, here they come. Instead, they're these kind of guys that just come and have tons of power over them and make everything look like they're going to lose. And I had a bit of a problem with that, because of, yeah, just no setup. And maybe I'm thinking of it in too many terms of like a television show or a movie where you get foreshadowing of these guys, but there's really no foreshadowing. They just show up, kick everybody's ass, and then just, and then end. They're gone. They die. Or maybe. I don't know. You never know in this. Like, the bad guy's supposedly dead, but he's not dead. It's the first book. It just seems like he's dead, right? But, yeah, that part was a little puzzling to me. But anyway, otherwise, The Eye of the World. I'm really glad that I took the recommendation of checking out the Wheel of Time world. And I'm really excited to talk about the show. And I'm really glad that I have some extra knowledge before I get into it. So, if you like this little discussion on the first book of Wheel of Time, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, and the bell for all notifications. Otherwise, we'll be back with more stuff on the 19th when we premiere the Wheel of Time. And we're also going to be talking about Cowboy Bebop and quite possibly Hulu's second season of The Great as well. So have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.